Hold on, folks. I've noticed that the output is the bandwidth is really bad right now. Sorry, everybody. I don't know why. I'm trying to check and see if I'm outputting something I shouldn't be. Doesn't make any sense. It's probably an upload by somebody else in the apartment. We'll roll with it. But sorry about the video quality tonight to start. It is not in a good spot, but that's all right. We'll do our best with it. Yeah. Well, let's do this. It's summer solstice night, everybody. Did you know? Yeah, this is really bad. I think somebody's uploading something. That is unfortunate. All right. Well, we're gonna do our best, everybody. We're gonna do our best. The good news is that when we put the VOD on YouTube, it will be a straight recording, so you're not going to see any of the latency issues or any kind of drop frames or anything like that when we get the VOD up, because it's just recording it on the computer. So that's kind of the encouraging thing about it. So no matter how bad it gets as far as the live transmission, it should be looking okay over on the VOD. So anyway, let's go ahead and start the thing. Let's do it. Let's do the thing. Here we go. I've had those days too. Hi, everybody. How's it going? My name is Dave Medina. You also know me as Dave. He's eating a sandwich on all the platforms. It's nice to see you all again. This is the Sandwich Show, and we're doing a sandwich corner tonight, which means we'll also be on Spotify and all the podcasting services this evening. Lots to get into, lots to unpack. Our friend Crickster checks in chat, who says, I feel like I just ate everything but a sandwich. I hope you're well. I'm glad you had a good meal. I hope you're doing well. This network is so bad right now. I am so sorry, everybody. This is such a disaster. But had not eaten yet. Got a variety of things from the Amazon Prime. Oh, right on. So tonight we're going to be talking about golf. The U.S. Open had just passed. It has a very unusual U.S. Open this year from LA Country Club. But I was privileged to be in the mix for a practice round with my dad last week, and that was an awesome time. I guess that experience was not shared by everybody else. But it's good to see you all. We're going to introduce our panel in a minute. Mike is still about to join us, so I think we'll be going with 3 people for the time being until Mike gets here. So, give me a second here. I need to adjust the thing in order for that to... All right. And come on. There we go. Okay, great. So, yeah, if you have any comments about golf during our show tonight, feel free to throw them in the chat. We'll have limited point redeems until our roundtable discussion's over. Nice to have you all here, though. Oh, pardon me. So let's go ahead and introduce our panel tonight. The buffer, yeah, I'm telling you, somebody's uploading a thing, and I told them I was streaming, but whatever. We're gonna get through it. Let's go chat to our friends tonight. First, I want to say hello to our good friend. Oh, hold on, let me turn this down first. Okay. So we're talking about the U.S. Open. Wyndham Clark was the winner. It was the most unusual Open, and this comes in just days after Liv and the PGA Tour had merged. We're going to talk about that too later in the show after our coverage. So first, let me introduce to you our first guest of the night, and he would be our friend John in Connecticut. John, it is really good to have you here on our summer solstice. The summer is now officially here. How's it going tonight, John?
Doing well, Dave. Yeah, thanks for having us back. Longest day of the year, first day of summer. So, yeah, excited to talk some golf. This was a very interesting tournament. We had all different types of players in the mix, and obviously Wyndham Clark comes up on top. We have a lot to discuss, whether it be the course, the broadcasting, the people involved, and obviously the overarching story with Liv and the PGA Tour merging. So yeah, lots to discuss tonight. Thanks for having.
Absolutely, John. It's always good to do these, and I will say, like, this merger is really putting this show and across this particular series, the golf series, in a crossroads because I don't know what to do at this point. I mean, following the tour is going to be weird because but anyway, we'll get to that later. Let's also introduce Andy to the show. Andy in Seattle is with us. How's it going, Andy?
Doing well. Dave, is your roommate uploading something? I didn't get that.
Yeah, I think that's what's going on because like it's so slow. Like usually that happens when someone's uploading a thing. So it's just crazy. Oh, okay, this is not a good scene to be using tonight. Now it's because Mike's not here yet. We have to go to this, which okay, that's better. I'm so sorry. This is kind of crazy. Now it looks like Jeopardy. I'm sorry, Andy. But are you hanging in there? How was your weekend? You were at Chambers Bay. I mean that's pretty awesome. Like tell us a little bit about that. But as we
Yeah, well, Chambers. Well, first and foremost, yeah. I mean, we just plow through the reverb. We're just gonna be talking. John gonna be talking like it's no different than any of the other programs. But speaking of your affinity for sandwiches and summer solstice, Potbelly. I don't know if you ever go to Potbelly or if they have them in Santa Monica, but Potbelly had a BOGO buy one get one promotion in conjunction with summer solstice today. So I partook. So we're gonna have leftover Potbelly for dinner tonight. Very frugal, very efficient with our funds. So we're looking forward to that. But yeah, Saturday played Chambers Bay, but Sunday I was glued. I was on top of the golf more so than PGA Championship last month because I was in San Diego. But yeah, I was on top of the golf Thursday, Friday, not so much Saturday, but start to finish, soup to nuts on Sunday. I'll defend the course like you guys. I will kill Azinger if you guys want to kill Azinger. I will. We can praise Wyndham while at the same time knocking Rory. We can defend the course. We're going to do it all. Looking forward to this chat. Looking forward to hearing John and Mike's thought as well. Looking forward to John talking about the Travelers. Everything's on the table tonight.
Yeah, you're right about that, Andy. I had a good feeling I have a feeling this is going to be a very spirited discussion tonight. So I'm really glad to have you back. Mike, you're extremely appropriate backdrop. Good to see you, Mike. How's it going tonight?
I'm doing pretty well, Dave. Yes, I figured if our new golf overlords desire to tune into this program, perhaps I can make them feel a little bit more at home. So, His Excellency MBS, if you're watching, I look forward to what you bring to the sport. Please don't behead me.
When we get to that part of the show, Mike, I'm gonna definitely lean on all of you to carry that because I am struggling with this right now. John, Andy, Mike, it's great to have you all back. And yeah, Andy's right. I mean, LA Country Club got killed in social media, and honestly, I didn't really feel the same way, except for one thing. I did think it was too big. Mike is right. Mike might mention that in text. I did think it was too big. The fairways were so big, like. It definitely hit a lot of warts for some players. You know, we talked about that in the final round. But the winner of the tournament, Wyndham Clark, not the guy that I don't think any of us were rooting for. Like a lot of people were rooting for Ricky, a lot of people were rooting for Rory, a lot of people were rooting for Schauffele earlier in the round. I don't think not a lot of people were rooting for Wyndham Clark. I mean, people in Denver, good on Denver, but other than that, I don't remember a huge Wyndham Clark contingent. So, Mike, we'll give it to you first to talk about this. I mean, again, I feel like the winner of the tournament is like the smallest part of the story. The biggest part of the story is LACC, which is it was a very weird event. You know, you barely had anybody there. And I was there. So I can tell you that there were just not that many places for patrons to be. The course was laid out in a way where you couldn't really have a lot of people gathered down the fairway of any hole. It's just a weird setup. So you had only these little pockets, and it was tough to like go across. It was very, and people were talking about how hilly it was. It was very hilly. It was like I put it up there with Augusta. Like it's really, really hilly. So Mike, let's go to you and get your thoughts on Wyndham, but also just it's a weird one to do because like normally we do like you do the field, then you do the surprise disappointments, but I feel like I want to talk more about the course and the club and the setup and the telecast, you know. So Mike, I'll give you the floor first. I mean, yeah, Wyndham did a great job, obviously. Your thoughts on the finish and the winner?
Yeah, Dave, I'll echo your sentiment here. It's that we have so many balls in the air involving this event, the surrounding landscape of professional golf, which we all know about, the Public Investment Fund PGA Tour merger, which I'm sure we'll get into more later, that it does distract from Wyndham Clark, his performance, a very impressive performance, be that. But yeah, it does get overshadowed here because look, if you just look at the event itself or how it played out, you have a guy who, yeah, listen, all of us know who Wyndham Clark is, but to the public at large, he's not very well known. He was going off at anywhere from 80 to 100 to 1. But when you see the guy play, the shots he can hit, the 190-mile-an-hour ball speed, the ability to hit these sky-high fairway woods with this baby cut into par 5, stopping them on a U.S. Open course, I think what he goes to show is just how deep and talented the world of professional golf is now. I mean, if you look at who Rory McIlroy is, why he was so lauded besides the winning, it had to do with the power, the ability to launch shots way up in the air, the ability to stop balls and on sections of greens that other people couldn't. But he's going head to head with Wyndham Clark, and granted different pairings, but it's not like it's not like when Tiger Woods took on Rocco Mediate or Bob May, where one guy is so clearly outclassed physically, can't hit the same shots, can't take the same lines, but he was able to stick with him for a bit. That wasn't what we saw at all. We saw a guy who's not a household name basically be able to match Rory off the tee for the most part, be able to match him with second shots into the greens. And this big advantage that you would think McIlroy would have, he didn't have. The guy was physically as talented as him. So that's really the eye-opening thing, is that we know that we have a lot of great players in the sport, but Wyndham Clark, I frankly, I'll be honest with you, I did not realize he was that good. I mean, he has every shot in the bag. He has that ability to hit shots that you would figure most people can't hit. And he could go punch for punch with physically one of the most talented players in the world. Now, I guess to get on Rory real quick, it was so eerie how similar this was to the British Open final round, where, look, he didn't choke, he didn't shoot 5 or 6 over, he hit the ball pretty well, but he couldn't make a putt. And what really derailed him early on was that on 3, he had a makeable birdie putt. On 6, he should have been able to get a fair. He hit his shot on 6, the short 4, a little bit too far to the right. He was in the rough. He wasn't able to make birdie there. And then on the par 5, he misses the short putt in what should have been an easy up and down. And he had one other good birdie opportunity too on the front 9, which is not. And I said this in the chat, that he had to make 1 or 2 of those, and if he didn't, it would bite him in the ass. So that's basically what happened. The front 9 on this course you could get, the back 9 you were more trying to hang on. And Rory, he just combination of mostly putting, but you can tell what I think Rory has issues with now is that he knows that his blow-up holes and his big numbers happen from hitting these wild short iron shots, short to mid iron shots. So what I think he's done in both the British Open last year and in the final round this year is that he plays a very safe approach game where he knows, okay, if I hit my miss, it's going to end up here and not in a place that's going to screw me. But you know what? If you put yourself in position, sometimes playing smart involves taking a little bit of risk with those second shots when the opportunity presents himself. And he's just so prone to these big misses now that I think he shies away from doing. And as a result, he doesn't get as many birdie opportunities as he would when he was at his absolute best. Because it seemed like 9 holes of the round, he would have 10 feet or less for birdie at his very best when he was in high gear. So another disappointing result from him. Look, if you want to look at the glass half full, I guess, is that in now the 9 years that it's been since he's won a major, his 2 best chances really have come in the last 3. So I guess you can say maybe he's getting close, but you know what? There's also a lot of scar tissue building up here. So I mean, look, he won at Hoylake, so and that's the next major. So who knows? But yeah, another disappointing result if you were pulling for Rory McIlroy.
Yeah, 100%. And what's interesting about that final round is that I don't think anyone was really that surprised at how Ricky did, because Ricky was technically like maybe 1 stroke back or even tied. No. What happened was on Saturday, he had a chance to go into the final round with a 1-stroke lead, and then he missed the putt, and then he missed again. And it was just like, that's Ricky Fowler in a nutshell. It's like, at that point, we were like, no, he's probably going to fall apart. And he did. He was never really a factor after, I don't know, the 6th or 7th hole. So it's just interesting to see that no one's really shocked or surprised. Like, oh my gosh, where did I go wrong? Like everybody's kind of seen that before. So let's go to John. Let's get your thoughts on the field and Wyndham and the final round and the whole thing.
Yeah, so agree with what Mike said. Do you guys know that faders win the U.S. Open? I mean, take a shot every time you heard that from Paul Azinger on the broadcast. But Wyndham Clark, when you look at his stats, he was always known as a guy who could drive the ball incredibly long and he could putt. Those were his only 2 like really good skill sets, and he wasn't reaching like a level of being a winner on the PGA Tour. He had never won an event until this year. He'd just been kind of like middling results. He'd kind of have a spike putting week, and he might get in the top 20 or something. And that's been kind of like his claim to like the game that he had for the past few years when he was on tour. However, this year, if you look at his stats, his approach numbers are just off the charts. Starting with the Farmers Open earlier in January, he hasn't lost on an approach in terms of strokes gained on approach in a single tournament since then. And that's really what turned his game around. So if you add that incredible approach play to what was already elite distance and driving and putting, and you have a great golfer that can contend with the best players in the world. And you saw like this incredible short game on display, on Sunday, where he had to get up and down numerous occasions when his irons weren't, admittedly, they weren't as crisp as they have been. On 9, he made that amazing up and down. The 17th hole, I mean, that was a pretty easy chip from where he landed there on that shot. But there's a couple other holes too, I believe, where he got up and down with just really clutch. He was making those clutch like 8-foot putts for par, which you have to do in a U.S. Open. So this is really the culmination, I guess, of a guy who clearly really worked on his game to improve his deficiencies and has gone from just kind of an average tour player to one of the better players on the PGA Tour. Like I was thinking of like actually betting him last week, but he just kind of missed the cut. Obviously I didn't do it because I would have been touting winning already, but like I was not surprised to see him do well. I bet him at the PGA Championship because, coming off the win at Wells Fargo, like the PGA Championship course set up really well for him. And he kind of had a letdown there and missed the cut, but like all the stats and everything were still there. So not surprised to see him get this performance and get this victory. And, we'll see where it goes from here. I mean, he definitely has the game to stay up there in the upper echelon of players. But, it just comes and goes. I mean, just look at Justin Thomas, just like shot an 83 in the U.S. Open. His game is just in a horrible place right now. So, you gotta strike while the iron is hot. So we'll see what happens. But he definitely has the physical tools to stay, in the top of the game of golf. I guess a few other just random comments, I guess. Yeah, McIlroy disappointing for sure. Yeah, he couldn't putt. The 14th hole just destroyed him. The par five where he probably should have just kind of blasted a wood like around the green. Like they were saying, like, why did he lay up? Because his wedge game is like shit right now. Like just blast it around the green and see what happens. Like I know you could have gotten like a terrible lie in the fescue or a bunker or whatever, but I mean at that point, just take a chance, and I think the worst he could have probably done was make a par if he blasted it up by the green, and that was the difference in terms of getting to the playoff. I mean, I guess we'll get to the course after, but yeah, some of the shots, like the fairways, were just way too wide, especially on the 18th hole. And you guys mentioned it in the text thread. Like any other U.S. Open course in the world, Wyndham Clark is in the trees or in the rough with his drive on the 18th hole. It's just a huge slice, but the fairway is like 60 yards wide. Like it's okay, it's in the fairway. I guess the only other thing I'll say right now about the course is it's never a great thing when you need the sun to come out for the course to be difficult. Like that's just crazy. Like it was so the morning like marine layer and dew or whatever just made it so soft and the guys were just attacking the flags. Otherwise there was no defense to the course. So I mean I enjoyed the layout and the intricacies of it. It's just probably not a US Open course. But yeah, we can talk about that more. But yeah, in general, again, not surprised by how well Wyndham Clark played and that he took the title.
He did indeed, John. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the course part of the segment because there's a lot to unpack, I think. And we'll go to Andy. Let's get your thoughts too.
Yeah, I'll table the thoughts on the course. I'll save my 12 cents for that segment. But in terms of the golf, Wyndham, Rory, yeah, like Tommy on Sunday was texting, like, should I know who Wyndham Clark is? I'm like, probably. And he was like, what's he done in majors? And I was like, nothing better than 75th. And he's like, then I shouldn't know who Wyndham Clark is. He's a nobody. So right then and there, I should have rethought my Scheffler before round 4 pick. And then I definitely should not have picked Rory on the back 9, but I am an absolute clown. The definition of insanity is doing something over and over again. It's like we're fading Rory on Sundays, and what do we do on Sunday when it's like at that point Fowler had cooked his goose. It was basically Scheffler had cooked his goose. It was only Wyndham and only Rory. Rory was minus 105 down a stroke, and I lied bet Rory. I had to pay the bookie on Sunday. All week long, I made the right amount of bets just to avoid paying the bookie to stay under that threshold because it's minus 2, whatever it is, doesn't matter. But anyway, I had to pay the bookie. But so Wyndham Clark, his like mannerisms, the way he swings the club, I don't know. It kind of reminded me of a hybrid of like Alex Noren and Daniel Berger. Like statistically, I don't think that might not make sense at all, but just watching him, I'm like, it kind of looks like Alex Noren and Daniel Berger had a baby. But to the other guy's points, yeah, I mean that cut was working, except on 18, as we all texted together, like that was a legitimate slice. Any other course, any other major, he's in the rough. Like if that was where the PGA was last year in Southern Hills, that's basically where like Pereira ended up. That similar ball flight. But a couple, big scenarios that basically got Wyndham to where he was the birdie on Saturday night on 18 after the bogey on 17. That was a great approach shot in the twilight. When he whiffed out of the Barranca, whatever you want to call it, like he could have easily have gotten an 8. A 6 on that hole was a great score. We were all like, oh, finally, because at that point, the U.S. Open, we were very close to like all he needs to do is just make pars and he's gonna win this. And then he got that bogey on 8. Could have been 8. Could have been a 7. So a 6 was good in that spot. John and Mike mentioned the up and down ability on 9, the up and down ability on 11. even a 5 on 16 was actually halfway decent because he hit it in the fairway bunker, and then he had to get out of the bunker, and he was like 130 yards laying 3. He didn't go up and down, but I mean that could have been worse. Like that, there's no gimme of reaching hitting the green from 130 yards out on 17, but he did. And he missed that putt for a 5, or he missed the putt to save par. So he did all the good things. All credit to him. Now with Rory, the thing that bothered me about Rory, and Mike broke it down perfectly, like avoiding the big miss, and John mentioned exactly what we were all thinking too on 14. So Noah Begay was like, I'm right in front of this lie. Like, it's not bad. A lot of people have been walking through this area. It's it's in the rough, but it's pretty bare. If he hits a flyer and goes for the green in 2, like he could still make par. And the next day there was like a thread on Twitter about everyone, all the other players in that spot that went for 2, where Rory was, and they like Bryson was there, and the likelihood of making bogey from that spot was very slim. There was, they had the flow chart and like a shot chart in basketball of where all the shots ended up, but if Rory could have a do-over, he might reconsider going for 2 there rather than laying up, because that wedge was horrendous, absolutely horrendous. And the fact that it almost like he even got the gratuitous relief, because obviously it was plugged. Why did you get a plug? Because that's the legit rule. It was an embedded ball that actually worked out for him, but he still wasn't able to go up and down. And the short miss on 8 was atrocious. What bothered me about Rory is, it doesn't bother me. Like, who am I? But it's Rory. But the fact that he didn't make a birdie after the first hole is just so haunting. And Wyndham was great, but the other thing that was haunting is it's not like Rory had there wasn't a group of players that he was locking horns with. It wasn't Koepka, it wasn't DJ, wasn't Cantlay, wasn't Schauffele. You know how in some of those majors you get 5 guys in the hunt on the back 9. It was one guy. It was one Wyndham Clark, and Rory wasn't able to slay the beast. And he's saying all the right things. He's close. He's almost there. He's got good things to look forward to. And the Open is familiar territory for him. And like I said, he's got to probably win East Lake. It'll be a great year for him. Amanda Balionis will showering him with the compliments. But I mean, gosh, this was an opportunity squandered big time. To use Chambly's adjectives, that gap wedge, that wedge shot was criminally. He used the word or the phrase, a criminal miscue, and it really was. And it's so weird. Rory getting 6s on par 5s, that's not supposed to happen. You're supposed to get a 4 on a par 5 if you're someone like Rory. And just very haunting. But fair play to Wyndham, U.S. Open champion, and definitely going to be on the Ryder Cup team now. So, you're going to be seeing him for the rest of the year. High profile.
Yeah, I mean, he really arrived he really built his brand, or maybe his brand arrived on this particular weekend. I loved your point, Andy, about Rory leaving those putts short on the front 9, because that honestly is where I think he lost it. He really could have built himself up some he could have built himself some breathing room if he had just made some of those shots on the back 9. There was so many opportunities, and when you think about a course that's really tailored for the long range golfer, the ball strikers, it's kind of it's surprising to me, at least, to see that he couldn't have taken more advantage of that scenario, whereas maybe some other guys did. Wyndham obviously did. So, thanks everybody for your recap. Everybody, that was really good. We get to the rest of the field. I mean, it was a pretty competitive field. one thing I think I want to comment on a little bit as we get into, and we'll just kind of put this all together because I really do want to move towards the course talk. But this is related too. Like, so we had a lot of people shooting low scores on Thursday, and it's true what Mike or John was saying. It was that the idea that the course's difficulty level rides solely on the sun being out. I definitely didn't think that was going to be that big of a factor going in. And as much as I'm familiar with marine layers living where I do, I thought this course was going to be tougher than it was. I was a little disappointed from that standpoint. It looked really tough. Like it looked like you had the barrancas, you had all the tough the grass. You had the 15th hole where it was just like 80 yards, but it was a green surrounded by bunkers. Like, I really thought it was going to be a tougher course. But the fact is, you had so many players with low scores, in particular going into Friday and Saturday. It was like, guys were at 9 under, they were at 11 under. It was wild. Very competitive round on Saturday. Competitive round on Friday and into Saturday. And then I think that's at the point where the cream started to rise at the top. So, Mike, let's get your thoughts on the rest of the field. And I think you can go ahead and merge the surprise and disappointments into that.
Well, rest of the field, let's see. I'll kind of merge this into the course. I'll quickly talk about it because I know you wanted to go there anyway. Mm-hmm. So, and considering that there were only a couple people that really had a chance to win it at the end, there's not necessarily that much to talk about. Quickly touch on Rickie Fowler. Like, look, on this show over the years, we've given Rickie Fowler a lot of grief, and I think rightfully so. Not necessarily because of anything he does or how he carries himself, but just the idea that he was hyped up for so many years as being this about to be this generational player, and it was just like he was a good player, and it looks like he's back to being a good player, but he was like they talked about him in the same breath as Rory McIlroy, and he was never that talented, and it wasn't warranted. Yeah, he's a good-looking guy who would dress in all orange, and a lot of kids liked him. But come on, he wasn't ever on the trajectory to be some generational player or some guy that we would talk about as one of the greats of his time. So the whole thing was ridiculous. That said, the last few years he's been playing worse than he actually is. Like, he's not a guy. He has enough talent that he shouldn't necessarily be having to fight for a tour card or missing the FedEx Cup playoffs. So, credit to him. He sought out Butch Harmon, who may be a little bit long in the tooth, but he said, hey, let's try to fix this. And it looks like he's, going to be back to near the level where he was at. I wasn't surprised he wasn't able to hold it together. It's been a long time since he's been in a spot like this. And even if you have the feelings before, you hear golfers talk about this when, if you've been out of it for a while, it's difficult first time you're back in, it's difficult to react to it. So encouraging signs from him, but who knows? I guess Xander Schauffele, another sort of, I don't know, a couple of years ago, the guy seemed like he was primed to win a couple of majors. Now you don't know. It's like he still has he has talent, but as we saw with Wyndham Clark, a lot of guys have talent. So, and he just seems to get a little bit tight. Cantlay, no surprise, not performing well in a major. He's just, I wouldn't touch him at any of the big events. It's weird. He seems to be one of those guys who his skill set, maybe he's where the sum is greater than the parts, and that sort of gets exposed a little bit when you ramp up the difficulty level of the course. Max Homa, not really surprised. There was a lot of hype about him because of his record at Riviera, his success on the West Coast. But yeah, he hasn't been playing well recently, so I'm not shocked that he didn't do so well. Getting to the course, yeah, there's a few things going on here. One of the challenges, because what they were trying to do here is they were almost looking to not set this up like a traditional U.S. Open, but almost accentuate this idea that LA Country Club is more built in the style of, let's say, a sandbelt course in Australia, like a Royal Melbourne or something like that, where the idea was the difficulty would come from the firmness And because the fairway sort of would kick things off into the heavy rough, you could make them wide because the firmness would effectively make them play smaller. And even if guys were in the fairway, the firmness of the greens would dictate angles and make things difficult. But listen, what you need for that, though, is you need some sort of predictable weather conditions that will keep, or turf conditions that will keep the course firm. You have that in links courses because it's this unique meetup of the sand and the soil, and that stays rock hard. So you can build links courses like that and generally have them be a challenge. Although we see in the Open Championship, sometimes the conditions are right, the guys absolutely torch the course. So what happened is they clearly underestimated how soft the course was going to get over the first couple days. And as a result, because of this persistent marine layer, because of conditions leading up to it, the course played much softer than anticipated. And what that did is that made these fairways that were super wide play like they were super wide. So as a result, you had a lot of holes where guys were really not challenged off the tee, where they could afford to misfire a little bit. And granted, look, a lot of great courses have that to some extent, but you don't really see that in US Opens, not traditionally. Now, they sort of tried to go, or they were initially going to go with a setup like this the last time that the US Open came around to Shinnecock. And I think the membership there sort of anticipated something like this could happen, because about a year out, they said, no, we can't do this. Fairways are too wide. And they narrowed up all the fairways. So, look, the US Open's coming back to this course. It's already scheduled.
That's right.
For 2030 something. Will they possibly change the corridors a little bit for that? Maybe. I don't know. Will there be advances in agronomy that allow you to firm up the course? Probably not. If it had played under the right conditions, I think you would get more of a challenge. But I did listen. I almost think that this event is sort of perhaps a tipping point for how we view golf courses and whatnot, because there's been this big movement to restore everything. And part of the restorations involve huge fairways, the idea that we're going to emphasize angles into the greens, give you room off the tee. But, you're starting to see a little bit of a pushback to that this idea that the pro game, the elite player, needs to be challenged a bit more off the tee. Otherwise, with modern technology, it renders everything futile. And I think especially the first couple of days, you kind of saw that. If angles be damned, if you hit the ball 350 yards, you're going to be able to knock an iron high enough in the air, and you're going to get away with it. So, and then one other thing I would say about this course, listen, I think this is a really, really, really good golf course. There's a lot of beautiful holes. The 6th hole is one of the great short par 4s I've ever seen. The collection of par 3s is outstanding. And I alluded to this in our group chat. It's just the holes themselves, the size of the fairways, the size of the greens, they're on such a grand scale that you can sort of get lost in just these seas of green when you see it on TV, and it sort of obscures the features a little bit. So I don't think it presented as well on TV as the course actually is in terms of the quality. But like I said, they're going to be back here again, and we'll see if they take on a different philosophy going forward.
That's a great question, Mike. And it just seems like it's funny that they would have that. And I think they announced that they were going back like maybe days before the tournament started, which I wonder if the USGA kind of looks back on them like, maybe we jumped the gun on this, seeing what's happened.
No, Dave, that's one thing I'll quickly bring up. If you look at future U.S. Open sites, they have almost all of them full until 2050, which makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah.
The USGA, look, if you want to say we're having the 2050 U.S. Open at Merion to commemorate 100 years since Ben Hogan's famous win, fine. But they literally have the vast majority of slots through 2050 filled, and it doesn't make sense. Trends come and go.
Yeah.
What courses are considered great come and go. Technology is going to change. So I don't know what the USGA is doing. Just a quick aside into that, having basically their whole schedule filled up for the next 30 years.
I would like to kind of take a moment to, before we go to Andy and everybody else, but give me a second here. There we go. Okay, cool. I do appreciate your text update that they announced that Riviera is going to get the Open in 2031. That's big news. Big news. So, because it was a big topic too, because like there was like discussion about, for whatever reason, that was left open, and I don't know why that gap was there. Like, why did they announce everything to 2050 except for 2031? But they filled that today with that announcement, and I think it's a good call, but we'll find out, Mike. But do you have any insight as to that scenario?
That directed to me, Dave?
Yeah, I was, because like I was curious as to what, why would there have been a gap?
Well, you know what? I was a little bit asleep on the wheel on this. Apparently, this had been rumored pretty heavily for a bit, and but yeah, they made it official. But it wasn't like a surprise. Apparently, I actually didn't know about that. I knew that Riviera was the Olympic course, the next Olympic course, but I did not realize that it was almost set in stone that they're going to have a U.S. Open there. But, that'll be interesting to see what we know that Riviera is a challenge. And
exactly.
Could easily be a U.S. Open setup. So that should, that should work pretty well. Yeah. I think everyone would be surprised if it didn't.
100%. Like, that'll be a much better challenge for the field than what we had at LACC. So, thanks, Mike. I appreciate that extra insight. Let's go back to John. And, John, let's get your thoughts on the field, and also, I mean, we're kind of just all talking about it, everything at once. So field, surprises, and disappointments, course. However you want to go attack that, feel free to get your thoughts on the rest of the tournament at large.
Yes, sorry if I cut out. I don't know what's going on with my internet here.
Oh man,
tough scene at the moment, but it is what it is. But what you guys were saying before about the course, the two things that made it very difficult. Or I'm sorry, very, very difficult to have like high scores is the fairways were so wide and it was soft. And it doesn't matter like how long the course is going to be or how, thick the rough is. Like if it's a soft course where guys can stay in the fairway and land their shots on the green, it's not going to be much of a challenge to PGA Tour professionals. Now, granted, when they were off the fairway, like it was brutal, but the rough, the ball would just disappear. So that was definitely the probably the biggest challenge. And then you got into the hay and whatever else the course had to offer. But just those two facts alone, just the soft conditions and the fact that the fairways were so wide, is just a recipe for low scores. And the greens were pretty undulating too. I mean, some of these shots, like these shots around the green, they're facing the other direction, where they're hitting a putt or a chip. And I think it could, like, if it was playing like really, really firm and fast, I think there could have been some higher scores, but just the fact that it was soft, and I think it just took a lot of the teeth out of it. So I did see that there is another U.S. Open scheduled there for, I don't remember the year. It's like maybe 15 years or something. So we'll see what happens by then. The fact that I don't know if you guys mentioned it yet, but about the members bought half of the tickets, and then just to like keep the masses off the property, I guess. And it was a limited capacity as it was, because they mentioned that numerous times during the broadcast. But then I believe Mike pointed it out in the group chat, like that they bought a bunch of the tickets. So it was just a very like wine and cheese kind of crowd. So good for you, Dave, for actually getting there. It was a practice round, so thanks. That was a good job out of you. But it was just kind of a very I don't know. It felt more like this could be like a PGA Championship course, and I hate saying that, because the PGA Championship has been really setting up their courses tough lately. This isn't like, I remember as a kid watching Tiger at Medina shoot like 22 under or something. It's like something ridiculous like that. Like the PGA Championship has been really tough with their courses lately. So, we'll see where the U.S. Open goes for here. Next year they're scheduled to go to Pinehurst, which honestly I am not a fan of. It's just a very bland, boring course to me from what I remember watching it. But the USGA just loves it for whatever reason. It'll be tough. I do know that it will be a tough course, but it's just to me it was just very very boring. Like it's the famous thing where like the ball's rolling off the green and John Daly is just so he's just had it so much he just whacks the ball while it's rolling off the green. It's the one thing kind of the thing you remember about one of the things you remember about Pinehurst, but yeah, so that's kind of it about the course. The rest of the field, I mean, really isn't too much to say. Scotty Scheffler again, he's just relentless. This dude is just a machine. Like you bet him top 10 every week and you just reap the rewards because he just doesn't go away. His iron game is just the best in the world. Again, we say it every week. If only Scotty could putt, he would win. And again, he probably missed a bunch of short ones where he probably would have won. I mean, it's the consistency of this dude is unbelievable, and it's just something to behold at this point. And just keep the run going. A nice showing from Cam Smith in the top 5. I think maybe he, it kind of didn't give a shit with like going to live because like what are you really playing for? So he's just trying to gear up his game for just a couple tournaments a year, and you're starting to see like the results, I guess, coming now when we're in the major season. We'll see how he does at the Open Championship next month, and then Tommy Fleetwood, backdoor top 10. It's very very Tommy-like of him. Although I will say we didn't recap any of the Canadian Open. What a playoff that was! Just to divert. Nick Taylor draining the 70-foot putt to beat Tommy Fleetwood and just like rob him of a PGA Tour win, even though Fleetwood could have closed it out numerous times before then. But that's kind of how he does things. But yeah, it was not too much to say about the rest of the field. I mean, the usual suspects that we think would play well kind of did, but they really didn't get up there. Like Mike mentioned, Schauffele and Cantlay, and Victor Hovland didn't do anything spectacular, but he was in the top 20. Same thing with John Rahm. So yeah, I mean, it was those guys. It's going to come in waves again for those guys. So yeah, that's about all I have to say about the field and the course in general.
I feel I appreciate that, John. Thanks for the recap, and I completely vibe with you as far as the rest of the field too. Like we've said it probably as much as we probably could say about it. Really, there wasn't much to talk about on Sunday either, as we were talking about all as well. I did want to say hello to a few people in our chat before we go to Andy. So just JT, thanks. It's great to see you, JT. It's really good. I asked JT what sandwich she had, if she had any sandwiches today, and the answer, she says, I had an egg salad on pumpernickel rye swirl bread, arugula, and bean sprouts for lunch. That just sounds amazing. Sounds so good. I'm glad you had a good lunch, JT. Not Demo Fellows, good to see you in chat too. Steam and Friend, nice to see you again. Follow our friend Steam and Friend on Twitch too. All right, back to Andy. So Ricky was Ricky. You called it. I called it. John and Mike called it. There's nothing really to talk about there. Let's get your thoughts on that, and yeah, feel free to throw some quick hitters about the course too.
Yeah, poor Ricky, go Ricky. Fuck Ricky. Enough. Dan Hicks sounded like Ricky Fowler's father. Like, Dan, can you be any more transparent who you want to win? Ricky Fowler. In the beginning of the telecast, he's like, oh, everyone's texting about Ricky. Who's everyone? Who's everyone? But anyway, I was actually just looking up Scheffler. It's almost like, I mean, you basically just have to do it. So for top 10 at the Connecticut tournament is minus 175. Top 5 is plus 130, at least on my site. And it's like, man, that minus 175 is a lot of juice. But if you've looked at what he's done, like he makes the top 10 every single time. And he putted like Francesa, and he finished third in a major, 3 shots behind the champion. And even on Sunday, he wasn't as crisp. His other parts of the game actually wasn't even that good. Like he screwed up the first hole. He didn't birdie that. He had a terrible drive, and his layup was still in the rough, and then he completely hooked. It might have been 9. It was one of the long par 3s, and he completely hooked the hell out of it, basically a duck hook. But all that to say, even without at not his best effort to finish third is really, really, really good. So yeah, here I am. I guess I have to bet on Scheffler top 5. I have 12 hours to decide, but some of the other guys in the field, Cam Smith, as John mentioned, he screwed me in the one and done league where we had to pick 2, and I had Rama Lama Ding Dong, and I had Cantlay, and the other guys had they had Hovland and Cam Smith. His back nine was really impressive because I think he was 3 under on the back nine on Sunday when everyone else was kind of blowing up. I don't have the stats in front of me, but he tore up that back nine on Sunday, and if he was just a little better throughout the week, he would have been right there. I mean, he backdoored to 4th place. John mentioned Tommy Fleetwood hit that entire round on Sunday was amazing. He backdoored top 5. Rick, Minwoo Lee, good job on him. Some other disappointments. I would say Xander Schauffele was very disappointing after Thursday. Ironically, you better tie this up there. Thank fucking God. The 2 guys that shot 8 under on Thursday, you really couldn't find them down the stretch on Sunday. I mean, Ricky, you did, obviously. He was in the final group, but Xander really wasn't anywhere to be found, and Fowler, it was only a matter of time. I'm going to say disappointing out of Jon Rahm. I'm
That's
allowed
fair.
to say that.
Very fair.
Because,
yeah.
What started out as the year of Jon Rahm is kind of petered out, which just goes to show you golf isn't easy. Hot take. Golf is actually hard. Hot take. And I was getting update from my buddy on Saturday when I wasn't watching because we both had keen interest on Jon Rahm, and he was like, Rahm looks like an absolute donkey out there putting. He looks like completely uninterested. I don't want to say Koepka was disappointing, but it was very un-Koepka-like. Even the start of his tournament, I think he bogeyed 1. He just didn't look all that there, and obviously he didn't like the course based on his comments. But Koepka always says the majors are easier than regular tournaments, but maybe he got that one wrong at LACC. Any other disappointments off the top of my head? I agree with Mike's point about Cantlay. He's very technical, very methodic, obviously. Maybe just needs to be a little more free-flowing, but that might not be in his DNA. Dave, you were right about Bryson until the last round,
Yeah.
but he was right there.
Yeah,
I mean, he had a
absolutely.
good 3 out of 4 days.
Mhm.
So, good job by him for the most part. A lot of the LIV guys kind of represented themselves pretty well, not including Patrick Reed. I mean, Sergio, he was pretty good. But yeah, that Hovland, I'm gonna say disappointing out of Hovland. Disappointing, but he didn't like the course either. And then I'm not gonna say disappointing out of Matt Fitzpatrick because I think the trend of defending U.S. Opens is not good. Like the guy that wins the previous year, they usually don't shine. So sorry, Matt, not this time. In regards to the course, it wouldn't be a U.S. Open if people weren't complaining about it from people like us to the actual players to the people on TV. Now I will say this about I get the lack of fans because of all the Plodwick style of making sure only the hoitiest and the toitiest get to go, and how they bought the tickets and most of them went to the hospitality tents, this, that, and the other, and they don't want the Bethpage Black type crowd, on their sacred sod of LACC. But go ahead, if you do go, please buy our $125 hoodies, please. But anyway, the a lot of these, like Justin Thomas, I find him tough to take, but he made a good point. Like some of these courses, like you mentioned Chambers Bay, he mentioned Erin Hills, he mentioned this place, like they're good courses. They are major worthy courses. They have great views, like, but they are not conducive to large spectators. Like, not to make it all about me or whatever, but Chambers Bay has like some really good spots where you can see some really good golf and you can see a lot of great action. However, 72-year-old like Gertrude and 65-year-old Leroy, like they're gonna twist an ankle, and there's probably all sorts of liability situations, and you can't build a grandstand on like uneven ground, right? You'd be able to, like, the four of us could perch up there and watch great golf all day long, but like you're not going to be able to get like 3,000 people in that spot, if that makes sense. So you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like, yeah, if you want to have the most people ever like watching US Open on the grounds, like you're gonna need a flat ass course, like in the desert or something, or in the Midwest where everything's flat. So, like Bandon Dunes is never gonna have we'll never get a PGA event or a major, probably for that same type of reason. There's just the topography doesn't lend itself to like large spectating situations. So, yeah, I believe a lot of what Mike said about how the intent to have like sandbelt style golf. Great idea on paper, but if there's a lot of moisture in the air, like this isn't Australia in the summer.
Right.
It's early June in Los Angeles. Like you're at the mercy of the weather. Mm-hmm. So maybe they're definitely going to take all the feedback that they got from this year, and when we're really old in 2042 or whenever they have it, they will probably have a better edition of the event. But the players that bash the course, like that's fair play. Like if you probably gave a lot of these players like the acid test, the truth serum, they would probably bash like a lot of courses that they play on. But the US Open just seems to be a lightning rod for more critical narratives of the course that they play on,
Yeah, that's true. Actually, we've seen that. That's been a theme for many years. Yeah, that's true. And I think that might be why they tend to gravitate towards a lot of the same courses again and again, because they don't want that. So they just keep going back to certain ones. I think you mentioned, Pinehurst was mentioned earlier in the stream, but then Marion's going to be in the mix again. Pebble Beach is going to be a mix for like the 900,000th time.
Yeah, Pebble Beach every 5 years. Even I find that tough to take. And I love the West Coast golf, but it's like Pebble.
Right? I mean, I love Pebble Beach, but it's like we can use a little variety in this rotation. Like, So Pebble Beach is like the Miami of like golf, of like US Open, because like it's just like all the time you see them in this thing. So yeah, I mean that's a great analysis, Andy. I think what we normally would go about course and telecast, both of them sucked. Well, no, the course was good. The course was good. I don't want to get into that. I mean, it's easy to say the course sucked because of how easy it seemed for a lot of players. It was a beautiful course, but as Mike really nicely put it, it's just not built for this kind of an event. Like the fairways is so wide, and I will tell you, I was in the mix, like as we were talking about earlier. I was able to do a practice on my dad. And it was like kind of the most overcast day of the weekend, I think. But yeah, I could feel it in my feet. Like it was really spongy. The fairway was really spongy. It felt great. Like I would love to play football on that field, but it was very spongy, very moist. Yeah, I guess it's not that surprising when you see how the scores were early in retrospect. So It was what it was. Yeah, and a terrible job at LACC, but it is what it is, you know. That is one of the stuffiest clubs I've ever heard of in my life. Like, you ever read like the regulations at their website? You can't wear shorts. You can't do this. You can't do that. If it's at a certain time, you have to wear a sport coat in the. Why do you have to wear a sport coat in the clubhouse? Like, what is that about? Like, I don't. It's just ridiculous. But Mike, I'll give it to you for that. I think we even said in the text, like, this is an even worse telecast than normal. And I felt that too. It was really underwhelming. So, Mike, I'll give it to you first, of course, and television thoughts.
Well, quickly to respond to Andy's comment about how you can't build a grandstand on uneven ground. If you can build a submersible out of stuff that's been left on the curb on trash night and try to send it to the Titanic, I think certain entities may be willing to build a grandstand on uneven ground. Construction quality seems to really be going downhill these days in the name of making profit, but that's neither here nor there.
Oh, my.
To get on to LACC and what happened here, like, look, let's be honest, this was a complete disgrace in terms of how they handled the ticket scenario. They had, I think it was the 2017 Walker Cup at LACC, and I remember maybe it was 2019, whatever year it was. And that was like their big welcome back thing, where they had opened their doors to the public again. And I remember, because I knew the US Open was going to be there. I knew that LACC was this great, historic, storied course that we had never really seen. So I paid a little bit of attention to that. And monitoring social media and stuff, I saw a number of things where writers and whatnot said that they got the distinct sense that the membership did not want them there. And there was this idea, well, if you don't want people walking around on your course, why are you having the event? So they were selling 23,000 tickets a day to this event, which is less than usual. But look, that happens sometimes. They did that at Marion. But the caveat was that 14,000 of those tickets were high-end hospitality tickets, which were available to the membership. And then of the 9,000 general admission tickets, LACC bought 4,500 of them, and it's rumored they tried to buy all of them. This course tried to turn the US Open into basically this wine and cheese event for their membership and for associates of their membership. When the USGA was negotiating with them, they never, ever, ever should have allowed such circumstances to occur. This is our national open. One of the appealing things about it is that anyone theoretically can qualify if your handicap is low enough. It's supposed to be open to all. I mean, that's basically the premise of the movie Tin Cup, right? And to take that and to essentially turn it into this closed off affair, killing the atmosphere, is just... It's like a microcosm for so much of what I would say is wrong with our society today. It's just, it's something that's supposed to be for the masses, that's supposed to be reachable. It's the US Open's not supposed to be like the Masters. And they turned it into this semi-private event. And I don't know why the US Open, the USGA felt that they were so beholden to an event at LACC that they would allow for this to happen. I mean, without being in the room, without being there with the negotiations, who knows how it actually went down? But something like this, they can't have something like this happen again. Although maybe it's good for their bottom line. I think it was just terrible for the reputation of the USGA to allow essentially a club to turn the US Open into a semi-private event for their members. That's not cool. Turning to the broadcast, you know what? If you want like a primer on Azinger, go look at what happened with Wyndham Clark on the 9th hole, hitting that second shot, where he's just like, oh, there's no way he's going to get it close on that line. Oh, see, he hit it up there. It's not going to come back down. Nope, not going to get close. And the ball just rolls down this slope to about 5 feet. Meanwhile, Azinger is wrong like 3 times, just 3 times during the same shot about what's going to happen. Listen, I'll give Azinger credit for one thing. I feel like he has heard the criticisms that all he does is talk about pressure and intestinal fortitude, and he's actually trying a little bit more to break down like the action of the shots. The problem is when he does that, he's incorrect. So I don't know what is so appealing about him that they feel that NBC feels this guy should be our he should be our lead analyst. You know, we're getting to the point where the main demographic that golf is trying to attract, you think that Azinger's aging out of. I mean, he's not that much younger than Faldo, really. So I don't know, but you know, what I think the problem really is with the NBC broadcast is that, look, it's not necessarily that the people in their roles are bad at their roles and can't adequately explain to you what's going on the screen, what the deal is with the shot. It's just that if you looked at NBC when you had Johnny Miller and Gary Koch and Roger Maltby, there was this element to it where you felt like, in addition to just having the action called for you, these were guys who enjoyed each other's company, enjoyed talking about golf, and there was this certain amount of chemistry and back and forth between all of them, sort of, you know, each chipping in on what they thought was going to happen, and it had this conversational element to it. That is completely gone now. It's just very much this point A to point B, describe the action, and the chemistry is not there. So it's not as enjoyable of an experience. I thought Dan Hicks had a terrible week. I mean, forgetting the whole Ricky Fowler thing where he's like, I'm getting a lot of text message about Ricky Fowler, as Andy touched upon. Did you hear him make the quack about Charlie Woods? And the next time that they're going to have the U.S. Open there, he's like, oh, well, Charlie will probably win that by 12 strokes. Can we let Tiger Woods' kid win a significant event at some point before we anoint him the next great golfer? See, that's the next grift in this Tiger Woods media thing, is that they're going to anoint his son the second coming of Jesus Christ himself, and that he's going to break all the records, and he's going to do this. And I don't know, maybe the kid will, but we don't have enough to go there. I mean, when Tiger Woods broke on the scene, he won 3 straight U.S. junior amateurs and then 3 straight U.S. amateurs. It was insane. No one had ever seen that. And now, because his kid has the same, you know, I know I'm going off point here, but I mean, come on. We don't need to talk about Charlie Woods at the U.S. Open. There's plenty of storylines to be talked about.
Yeah.
Not a good week for him. And you know what I was thinking during the Canadian Open last week, which is one of the great finishes I've ever seen in a non-major event, was how much worse would this be if we just had to listen to Azinger drone on and on about pressure during that whole playoff, and how Nick Taylor's never won and Tommy Fleetwood has never won on U.S. soil and this and that. Just how bad that experience would have been. Fortunately, we didn't have that. We had Nance in the mix, but yeah, NBC, look, they're not going to do it because I don't think these guys really care about their broadcast. They just care about what the bottom line is, but it's not the same. It has no chemistry, and in an ideal world, I think they would try to work on that.
Yeah, 100%, Mike. I do want to welcome our friend, the Rusty Panda. Welcome to the Sandwich Show. So good to see you, everybody. Thank you for the raid. My name's Dave Ventina. You know me as Dave. He's eating a sandwich. And the Rusty Panda is an awesome podcaster as well. So good to see you, Panda. How are you doing tonight? Folks in our chat, please follow our friend, the Rusty Panda. So good to see you. So I'm a variety streamer based in Los Angeles. We have had a lot of great conversations in the course of the 2 or so years we've been doing this show, but we've also merged the sports show into the Sandwich Show. So this is called Sandwich Corner, and we are talking about the U.S. Open tonight. I hope you're well. Thank you so much again, Panda, for the raid. How was your stream, by the way? I would love to hear more about it. Like, who did you have on? Was it a good conversation? Hope you're doing well. These are my guests tonight. We have Andy in Seattle on the upper left corner, John in Connecticut on the lower right, and Mike in North Jersey in the I'm sorry, John Kinnigan in lower left. Lower right would be Mike in North Jersey. We've known each other for a very long time, like almost 15 years at this point, and we've covered golf for almost all of that time. And tonight we're really covering golf at a very interesting time because the PGA Tour has merged with the Live Tour, which is founded by some folks in the Middle East. We're going to get into more detail on that in a moment. But first, let's go to Andy. And Andy, I would love to hear your thoughts on all of these things: the telecast, the course, the hoity-toityness. The thing about the LACC is that it seems consistent with like all 200 years of their history, because it seems like this has just been like this forever. So then the question is, why is the USGA trying to make this work when it seems like these guys don't care? It's weird how secret this course is. I didn't even know it existed until like 5 years ago. And I've lived here for 15 years. It's weird. So anyway, Andy, let's give you the floor for all these scenarios.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not smart enough to know like why USGA like picked that place, but I mean, I do remember Mike bringing it up in 2017 in the Walker Cup, and this course is shrouded in secrecy and very corporate. The do's and the don'ts: no hats, sport coat, no cell phones, no celebrities. Don't like it? Go play at Wilshire, go play at Bel Air, go play at Riviera. All first world problems. I mean, whatever. Some rich people like to get rowdy. Some rich people like to be very buttoned up. It's whatever. I'm never gonna have to have that conundrum. Boo hoo. Now, all that to say, yeah, I mean, I think the regardless of where the course was, like if it was at some other upper crust location, that was a travesty. Mike hit it on the head. The Open, you want everyone to have an opportunity to like go there, have a reasonable chance to get tickets, have a reasonable, without having to pay an arm and a leg on the primary market. Secondary, tertiary market, that's fair game. Last year at the Country Club in Brookline, the secondary market was crazy. I mean, that happens. Taylor Swift concerts, whatever. But the fact that the club and the members basically tried to inventory their way to cut off the common man is some people say I'm an ageist or I'm anti like snob. I mean, there's worse things to be. Oh, you hate snobs? What's wrong with you? Well, you could hate other people and then you could tell me what's wrong with me. But so I don't like snobs. It could be a lot worse.
It could.
So yeah, just a terrible, terrible job by terrible people. And but as Mike said, the bottom line, they don't really care. So, and for us plebeians watching it on TV, maybe we'll get a decent telecast. Maybe. So my takeaway on the telecast is, it's hard to believe. It feels like Azinger has replaced Johnny Miller for 15 years when it's really only been 3. That's how worn out his act has been. It's I wasn't the biggest Johnny Miller fan, but gosh, man, I would take him in a heartbeat now, if that meant the end of Azinger. You also get the idea that Hicks and Azinger, they might not. I don't think they have much to say when they're not doing the broadcast. It feels like their chemistry is off. Almost like when Mike and Chris were having awful arguments. You could just kind of tell through their shows when they were going through a rough patch. It just doesn't seem like there. It's not Faldo Nance. It's not even Nance Sims. It's not Nance Romo. It's not Nance Immelman. It's not Miller and his partners. Mike made a great point. You got a sense of community / camaraderie with the older guys that are no longer with NBC. So yeah, maybe they need to, refurbish their, the X's and O's of their broadcast. And the last thing I'll say about the broadcast is the playing through segment. I know you only get like 30% window of the golf, and then the commercials like 70% of the screen. But like you actually get a lot more golf during those playing through segments than the actual telecast, which is annoying. Because when you go through a playing through segment, you can see like 6 shots in those 120-second segments, rapid fire. Whereas like the non-playing through segments, it's a little more plotting and stuff. But yeah, NBC's had much better weekends. Much better weekends.
Indeed, they have. It's kind of an interesting study in the new generation of broadcasters that both NBC and CBS have right now, and slowly, bit by bit, like it's evolved a lot. And in the case of NBC, definitely not for the better. Even only 5 years ago, you had guys like David Faraday in the mix. You had Johnny Miller. You mentioned that. Is Coke still in the mix? I'm sorry, I'm out of the loop on that. He's out too, dude. Yeah, there you go. So, all right. Well, thank you everybody for your comprehensive breakdown of this event. Again, there was a lot.
I think John has to go.
Oh, did John not do his thing? Oh yeah, John. Let's give it. Okay, John. Let's give it to you as well. Yeah, you're right. I'd love to get your thoughts on all these scenarios. Yeah, thanks for picking me up on that. Yeah, I wanted to make.
Yeah, no, I don't have anything much to add about the whole, club buying tickets and all that. We kind of rehashed that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just to again, why did you even have it there? It has to be financially driven from both parties for this to happen and for them to buy all those tickets and whatnot. Just hope it doesn't happen again, but we'll see. But yeah, the broadcast, I could not agree more. It was even worse than usual. And I think the reason for that is in the past, NBC would have some other announcers besides Azinger that would kind of I wouldn't say carry the broadcast, but would make it palatable to watch, like Gary Koch, and they would have even Peter Jacobson or Faraday. They kind of brought some personality to the broadcast. These guys they got in there now, they're just boring. Brad Faxon and Kurt Byram, he's fine for the Golf Channel Thursday, Friday. Why did they pull him to NBC? It just doesn't make any sense. I think Smiley Kaufman only got his job because he knows Jordan Spieth and Ricky Fowler and all those guys. He doesn't really add much of anything. The best guy they have, and not because he shares my name, is the caddy that I have on there, John Wood. That he gets some really good insight on the course. That guy is tremendous, but everybody else is just hit or miss. And I think losing that second level of broadcaster definitely has really hurt the broadcast between Faxon and Kurt Byram and all these new guys that they brought in. It's just not meshing well. And you guys point to the chemistry, CBS, every other comment on CBS, you have Nabilo joking with Baker Finch, who's taking a shot at Colt Knost, and they're all going back and forth with each other. And even Immelman's getting in on it. And I never thought I'd say this, but Immelman he's not bad. He's 100 times better than the Azinger, maybe 1,000 times better. And this is his first year doing it. It's a full time. Well, he's been in the broadcast as the main analyst. It's really incredible the difference between the two. But yeah, NBC there's just no chemistry or anything with the guys in the booth. And what else can you say about Azinger? He doesn't. I don't think he does any research. He just says whatever comes to his mind, and it's wrong 99% of the time. I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna do. They don't have enough of a big schedule of events that they would. They have their 5 or 6 tournaments in March, and then they have the 2 majors, and that's it. And they do the FedEx Cup. They alternate between CBS and NBC, but I don't know if it's really worth their time to try to find somebody else. I don't know who would want to do it, who would be available. I mean, shit, the couple times that John Rahm came on for 20 minutes, he's better than Azinger has been in years that he was, been doing this. So there's clearly got to be somebody out there to be better than Azinger. So we'll see. But yeah, not an encouraging week for NBC, and we get them again next month for the British Open. Unfortunately, can't they just bring Faldo back for the 2 majors? Pay him twice a year, NBC. Seriously.
Yep. I mean, it's that you're definitely feeling his absence right now, John. So I think so. We should definitely discuss the merger, and we're gonna. But maybe we'll take a moment just to look ahead a little bit. So, John, I'll stay with you for a bit because I'd love to get your thoughts on Travelers, which again is always a great event. So, let's hear your thoughts on that coming up.
Yeah, what a tournament this year. We talked about this on previous podcasts, but if you're listening for the first time, so the PGA, in order to compete with Live Golf, I guess you could say, in terms of like the money and purses available, um, they they've designated certain events to be like an elevated status where they're offering a huge prize pool and all the top players in the game or on the PGA Tour have to play. So the Travelers is the last one of these quote unquote designated events. The majors are so obviously the British Open will be in the FedEx Cup, but you have to qualify for that. But like in terms of like actual just normal tournaments, the Travelers is the last one of this. So you have the entire PGA Tour is playing this week, except for like I think Jordan Spieth isn't playing, Tyrrell Hatton's not playing, and then one other guy that's like eligible is not playing. So basically, the entire like all the guys that you saw last week at the U.S. Open, minus the Live guys and those two that I just mentioned, are playing this week, just right down the road from my house. So it's going to be an exciting tournament to be at. Unfortunately, the weather looks absolutely miserable. All 4 days, it's just you can't find a spot on the hour forecast. It's like not under 40% chance of rain. So I don't know what they're going to do. Just hopefully it's not thunderstorms and it'll just be a miserable experience for whoever's going. But which is me. But we have I got a club seat scenario. So even if gets a little wet, I can head in there and watch some golf. But I definitely wanted to like watch the course. Like some of these groups they have, like Rahm and Scheffler are playing together. Hovland and McIlroy are playing together. Like I really want to be on the course, like watching these guys. But we'll see. I'll probably just bear it and get soaked. I mean, with the just water. But yeah, the course like literally anybody can win because it's a short course. You need to focus on like your obviously approach play is huge. Winning score is usually pretty low, although the rough here is pretty thick. I will say, if you get off the fairway, there's some thick rough, so you want to keep your ball in the fairway. And then obviously, if there's some wind that comes up, it can be tricky. I remember in the past, like 12 or 13 under has won, which is really isn't that low. And then other years you have like a 18, 19 under. I mean, Jim Furyk had the lowest score in the history of the tour here with a 58. So you get a very wide variety scores, and basically anybody can win because it's a short course. So you can like kind of plod your way around with irons and putting, or you can just kind of be like a bomber and just kind of blow your driver down on a lot of these holes and just kind of put it to the put your wedge shots in from there. So it's always an exciting finish with the holes wrapped around the lake, 15, 16, 17. And it seems there's to be a playoff almost every year. Harris English and Kramer Hickok had a 8-hole playoff a couple of years ago. If you guys remember that, that was just wild. I don't think you've heard of Kramer Hickok since. So that's my point. Like literally anybody can contend at this tournament. So my bets that I made, I'm kind of going with like fading the top of the board because the week after the major, like it's just really draining for a lot of these guys, especially the ones that are in contention or just playing that type of course. I think is tough. Even though, as we discussed, it's a little easier than usual. Just everything involved in playing a U.S. Open and then all the travel to Connecticut. I just think you might not see the best from some of the best players. So, and plus, I usually don't like betting under like 15-1 anyway. So I'll stick with some of the longer odds. So I bet Tom Kim at 30-1. He had a great finish at the U.S. Open, and this should be a really good course for him. I bet my long shot, Austin Eckroat, he's been playing really well. And he had a top 10 at the U.S. Open as well. His approach game is on fire, and he was like 100-1. So that was a bet that I like. And then I also bet Denny McCarthy, just on the premise of that this is a tournament historically where guys kind of break out for their first win. And he's been very close lately. He obviously lost in the playoff to Victor Hovland. And his again, he's kind of like Wyndham Clark, and he's been just typically known for being a really good putter, but now his iron game has come around. So if he brings that to the Travelers, I think he's definitely live for this event. So those are the 3 bets I made. Tom Kim, Denny McCarthy, and Austin Eckroat. So should be a fun tournament. And I want to see the young Swedish golfer Ludvig Aberg. I think we mentioned him in our Twitter threads or text conversations, like he just turned pro from Texas Tech, like he's getting sponsor exemptions for the rest of the year. This guy's gonna be a really good player, so I want to check him out before he's like, he'll be like John Rahm in like 5 years. So definitely gonna watch him. So yeah, it's gonna be a fun time, and I'm fingers crossed that we can get 4 rounds of golf in. So that's my Travelers Championship preview.
Well, have a great time, John, and I do hope the same. I hope that those 4 rounds go as planned. Now, you mentioned fading the top of the leaderboard. So, are you speaking of who's like heavily favored in the tournament, basically?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that they can't win, like Scheffler or Rahm or any of those guys. McIlroy could go out and like blitz the course. I feel like the week after a major, and especially at this course,
Yep.
you really don't usually you just go back to the list of winners at this tournament. Like you're not seeing those kind of names winning. You're seeing like Bubba Watson 3 times. You're seeing Harris English. You're seeing Ches Reavie. Like you're not seeing like these high end players. Like they can play well. Like Scotty Scheffler, like top 10, sure, bet it. Like I'm not going to tell you not to do it. It's just I'm not going to really pick those guys to win the tournament. So that's just kind of how I feel about it.
I think it's
I don't know how you guys feel, but that's my.
I think it's great strategy. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure. I just wanted to clarify like what you meant. Whether you're referring to like people who were making the leaderboard last week, which I think makes so much sense. Like I completely agree with your idea. One guy I want to keep an eye on though for this tournament, because I've been following for the last like month, like Minwoo Lee. He's got some game. I'm curious to see how he does in this tournament. He's 5-1 to win, or plus 5,000. I guess that would be what? Would that be 5-1? Can't really think of that right now. Oh no, that might be like 50-1.
That's 50-1, Dave, not 5-1.
Yeah, 51. Okay, 51. So yeah, I mean, completely out of the question. It'd be interesting to see. Maybe you may make a run at it. We'll see. Mike, let's get your look at the road ahead, and we can include that the Travelers and then the Open and any other events in the near future. Mike, I'll give you the floor.
God, I was muted there. I used to be so used to the Zoom stuff, and I'm not on it much anymore.
Oh, I got
But
you.
yeah, John covered the Travelers pretty well, so I'll let that rest. After the Travelers, though, we really hit this dearth of the PGA Tour schedule. You have the Rocket Mortgage Classic in Detroit, which is always nothing. Then you have the John Deere Classic, which means the world to the Zach Johnsons of the world. Fortunately, the Zach Johnsons of the world are irrelevant to me, so it means nothing to me. But listen, I guess if you find yourself in the Quad Cities, I'll recommend to go to it. But I don't know why you're going to find yourself in the Quad Cities in a couple of weeks. So, we're really in this. There's so many of these designated events early on. But even before the whole designated event thing happened just for this year, and who knows what's going to happen next year, which I guess is our next topic. The dog days of the summer are always the weak point of the schedule outside of the British Open, which will be at and they do have the Scottish Open is technically a PGA Tour event now, so that's at the Renaissance Club. So you'll have the Scottish Open, you have the British Open. British Open's at Royal Liverpool, which is also colloquially known as Hoylake. Rory McIlroy won last time it was there, so we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, after this week, you're gonna have a couple weeks where it's just, maybe tune into baseball, see the Mets pitching staff collapse, see if watch the Yankee games, and then monitor social media afterwards to see if there are calls to clean house. Because there's not going to be very much with the golf after this week. Going to be a couple. Listen, those are probably going to be with the whole designated event thing this year. Those are going to be borderline Corn Ferry Tour events. So it is what it is.
Well, I appreciate that, Mike. I appreciate the honesty too, and we are definitely segueing very hard into the next topic. So let's just give it to Andy first for any quick hitters on the upcoming schedule. Anything else you want to add, Andy, before we get into the big elephant in the room?
Yeah, I mean, with the Connecticut tournament, I love the event. John mentioned it's a great blend of like the star power has been there for a handful of years now, and then you're always, Xander won it last year, but then it's right. You're gonna get like a Kevin Streelman 59. You're gonna get a Bubba Watson situation. You're gonna get Chez Reavie. I don't have the stats in front of me, but I would put this event like if there's like a stat like playoff probability. I feel like this tournament like would be up there. I feel like this event is a playoff. Like every other year or every other 3 years, they go to a playoff, and the winner, like even if it's not a playoff year, the winner is winning by 1 or 2 strokes. It's not, no one ever runs away with the event, which makes it for good TV. So yeah, I actually in my one and done league, for the elevated events, you pick 2, and I had Siwoo Kim and Tom Kim, but I was looking at McCarthy, and after John's rundown, I might change it to McCarthy, and I might sprinkle a couple of units on a top 10 situation for Denny McCarthy. So I appreciate that. I like getting some valuable research that I would never have done on my own. But McCarthy's staring at me right now, right there. So I might have to revise my picks. So with that being said, yeah, I don't have any thoughts on the Open. Obviously, it's too early. And yeah, with respect to what's coming up the pipeline, Rocket Mortgage, fucking John Deere, I don't know, like Barbasol, Wyndham's not bad anymore because Wyndham, like everyone that is flirting with top 125 will be there. Like Nance does the event, but I'm assuming Sungjae Im is going to be playing either Rocket Mortgage or John Deere, if not both. And I have saved Sungjae Im in my one and done league for those events because like, you got to pick someone. And Sungjae has an affinity for playing basically every event under the sun. So I'm hoping he's in the field in the next couple of weeks for those events. But yeah, it's perfect weather for like actually playing golf right now. But the events do get a little diluted. I mean, you're going to have some lulls here and there, and this has always been one of them.
Yeah, I do think your move is savvy,
Did you use now yet? Because he's gonna play Rocket Mortgage because he won last year.
I used Finau in the Mexico.
Ooh.
Okay, so that worked out then. So that worked out anyway.
Yeah.
Nice. Congrats on that too. Yeah, that's good. That's a good spot. All right, so let's do this. So during my vacation to Palm Springs with family, where they announced that LIV merged with the PGA Tour, and I have so much to say about this, but I feel like you all will say these things better than I will, so I'm just going to give you the floor and get your thoughts on this and what it means for golf, what it means for North America, for the United States. I mean, geez. Mike, I'll give it to you first.
As we've discussed LIV over the last year, I've usually added this one caveat to any one of my comments about it, which was it's not a pure economic venture, and as a result, it was going to be very hard to ultimately analyze, even if we thought it wasn't necessarily doing well or if it stalled out, because this was a government, because there are geopolitical goals behind it. We don't know. We weren't sure what the losses were what type of losses the Saudis were willing to incur in order to push the envelope to where they wanted it. So a few things happened here. And I will say, before I get into that, it was funny. I was actually sitting in an appellate courtroom watching proceedings when I got the text message where John's like, the PGA Tour and LIV merged. What? So yeah, instead of paying attention to the cases, I'm on my phone on Twitter in the courtroom trying to like hide it below the bench so the judges can't see me what I'm doing. I probably shouldn't be talking about this, but you know what, whatever. They're not going to fire me at this point in the clerkship. So regardless. Anyway, but getting back on point, you had a few things going on here. One was that I think it became apparent that the Saudis were going to do what they needed to do to gain a stake in the world of professional golf. Even if Live wasn't necessarily going to be the ultimate vehicle to do that, Live was sort of the way to at least initially stake their claim. And it became apparent that they weren't just going to be like, well, you know what, we're losing money on this and it's not sustainable, so we're out. They decided we don't care. What's your number on this? And I think one of the things that we saw that sort of gave evidence towards this is, listen, I know nothing about soccer or football as it's called around the world, but I do know that the Saudis have signed a number of very high profile players for outrageous sums of money, and that they've really invested themselves in the English Premier League. I'm seeing stuff where they're complaining that the entities are essentially involved with multiple teams, and some stuff really isn't on the level because it's really, you know, the same underlying powers controlling multiple teams and making transactions. But that being said, it shows you how much money they're willing to sink into sports and to be a player in the international sports scene. So I think that became apparent to the PGA Tour. And then the other thing, which I think I alluded to in our group text, was that, and I think this was admitted that, or at least it leaked out, was that ultimately the PGA Tour's financial structure in order to try to compete with this was not sustainable. The sponsors weren't just going to keep doling out this money, and they weren't going to keep dipping into their reserves, and they didn't want to keep paying the legal bills to fight this matter. So that's where we are. Listen, this is going to change golf as we know it. It is never going to be structured the same way again starting in a few years. I don't think the Saudis are going to pay what they're going to pay in order to essentially bolster the PGA Tour, have an ownership in it, and maybe have a stronger international series in the offseason. No, they're going to revamp the way it works. I don't see how otherwise that would make sense for them. Now, listen, that being said, I don't want to hastily jump to any conclusions about what's actually going to happen here, because there's so much that has not been announced that we're really, it's just, there's so many different directions in terms of what actually legally is going on. Is it a merger? Is it a hostile takeover? Which company is actually surviving as the parent company? Who knows? I mean, what they said with some of this framework is that the head of PIF is the chairman, Monahan is the CEO. That you saw one thing, that the PGA Tour would have the majority of seats on the board, but then the thing that really stuck out to me was that the PIF would be the sole investor in the PGA Tour to start off, and importantly, that they would have the right of first refusal, which means that they could stop anyone else from investing into it, which tells me, okay, if they're controlling the money here, then you would think they would ultimately be in control of the tour. But I don't know. What do they value their assets as how much they're buying in versus how much the PGA Tour can say we're worth, and what percentage does that gain them? We don't know. So all we really have here is this idea that, hey, we've agreed to, we're going to work together in the future, and here's some basic framework. Look, the Department of Justice already said they're opening up an antitrust investigation. Monahan's going to get hauled before Congress, although apparently he had some acute medical emergency, maybe a case of a suspicious poison. You know, I shouldn't joke about that, but it was very convenient that a guy who's a terrible public speaker is all of a sudden like, I'm ill, I can't talk to anyone, have a nice life. So I don't know. It just, I mean, it was shocking when it happened, but when you like look back at everything, it's almost like, well, wasn't this where we were going ultimately when you take a step back? Maybe, but look, like I said, I expect everything's going to change. The fundamental structure of how the highest level of men's professional golf is going to change. But we don't know in exactly what direction it's going to go initially because there's so much about this merger that's unknown. Now, I will say one thing here if we're going to give a hot take. Why are the governing bodies here, the major championship governing bodies, with the exception of the USGA, which gave a somewhat lukewarm statement, being like, we're glad that the division is over here and we don't want to see this anymore. Guys, wake up and smell the coffee here. Do you think the Saudis are going to sit back and not want to grab a piece of the financial pie that you have? Think about it. The 4 biggest events of the year are not controlled by this new combined entity. Those 4 events are worth such a disproportionate share of the available revenue in golf. You're telling me that they're now, with this backing of a government that is looking to make itself a player on the world stage or give themselves an even bigger role, is not going to come for that at some point? Like that they wouldn't put an event on opposite the Masters and say, hey, the winner gets $50 million. That's going to happen. And I don't understand why. Maybe they can't envision it happening. They're going to try to break the majors if this whole thing actually does come together. It'll probably start with the PGA Championship. It'll be a lot harder, I think, to break the other 3, at least initially. But I was surprised to see that because that was my first thought is the PGA of America, the R&A, and the USGA, and Augusta National, they must realize that they get a disproportionate share of the revenue from professional golf based on how often they're actually involved. And why wouldn't this company jump in and try to take it? So, like I said, we have more questions than answers really at this point, but a lot of things are going to change. And I think some people that are watching who have a vested interest in this, they may want to take a closer look at and reevaluate where they think things are going to go because it may not work out very well for them.
That's fantastic analysis, Mike. Honestly, it is so hard to make sense of all this, and it means a lot that you could share your insights on this matter. I mean, you've known golf for a long time. You're very well versed in the mechanics behind professional golf, and that means a lot that you break that down for us. Like it's really great to hear that. And as you said, like even at that, what have we learned? We don't. There's still a lot of questions to be answered. You're absolutely right about that too. It's a disturbing moment for me personally. As a fan of golf, it's like I don't know what to do with this. Like, I don't want to support something that's backed by Saudi Arabian government. Sorry, but so you know what I mean. Like I know maybe not everyone is quite as strong about that kind of opinion, but. And as you were saying, Mike, they're already tying their hands in other sports too. So it's like, is this just going to be an inevitable outcome for all sports? I don't know. I mean, money is what it is. I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to give it to John. Let's get your thoughts on this matter. What is your feel for this entire matter, and where do you think golf goes from here as well?
Yeah, just wait until like a group of those investors like want to buy an NFL team. Like, it's gonna happen. When the NFL expands to Europe or wherever the hell they're going to be going to get some more teams in, like that's going to happen. So, we have not heard golf is not the only avenue for these folks. But yeah, I mean, it was really honestly shocking, like because no one saw it coming, and like literally none of the players saw it coming. That was the whole thing. That Monahan did this behind everyone's back with that other attorney. I think his name is Dunn, and then the folks from PIF, and they put together this framework, and you kind of left people like Rory McIlroy, who was, as Mike said, like Monahan's just a horrible public speaker. Instead, he's sending out McIlroy and other players to talk about how loyal they are and how the PGA Tour is where the game, highest level of professional golf. Like, why wouldn't we want to stay here? Where, and then we're merging with this league a year later, where McIlroy and Rahm and those guys could have gotten hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. So they got to feel pretty stupid, not stupid, but like played at this point for not taking the money. And I guess now that they're going to be compensated by having an equity in this new venture, because it's going to be a for-profit entity, which is an interesting concept for sure. And somehow the PGA Tour is going to keep its nonprofit status, which, let's face it, is a joke to begin with. That that's all like tax codes and everything else that make themselves a nonprofit, but like they're not a nonprofit company. Monahan makes millions upon millions of dollars. Yeah, his salary just went up tenfold probably with this deal. But yeah, just the whole way it went down was just obviously really shady. I do agree that the tour probably saw the writing on the wall, or not the tour, Monahan saw the writing on the wall that they just couldn't keep spending all this money, both in the purses that would be required to keep up these, quote, elevated events year after year after year, and also with the legal situation. So yeah, it makes sense from that standpoint, but like they didn't have to merge with these guys. Like that's the one thing that gets me. They could have let it play out for a little bit. Like I don't know. I think it was maybe a quick rush to end the situation, but hey, money talks in the end, and that's kind of where we're at. I just love the comments from Monahan, and in the statement, he's like, oh yeah, LIV is a groundbreaking organization and league, and we're so happy to be partnering with them. And like a year ago, he was talking about like the 9/11 families, like why we should protest this league, and it's just kind of sickening, honestly, from his perspective, like for his actions. I mean, I love watching and playing golf, and we talk about golf and wager on golf. So I mean, I'd like to make like a righteous stand, but like, what are we gonna do? Like, I don't want to like stop watching golf because of this. So it is what it is. Like, we all make our own choices in that regards. And I wouldn't, Dave, you said I'm not gonna watch golf anymore. Like, I wouldn't say, oh man, that's stupid. Like, you do what you do. Like, we all have our own personal thoughts and feelings on this kind of thing. But in terms of where things are going, like, who knows like what this is going to look like. Is there going to be a whole new schedule revealed for next year? Like, they're already working on a schedule with dates, like, because of this whole elevated event situation. Well, now is LIV being incorporated into this next year? Like, is every PGA Tour player being on a team? Like, are we going to have a team of like Jason Duffner and so it's like some of the four worst players on tour at this point? Like, is that going to be a team? Like, it's just, there's like so many questions that need to be answered at this point. And honestly, the only constant at the moment is the four majors are still there. But I kind of am seeing Mike's hot take. Like, yeah, they're going to play a tournament opposite of the Masters where the winner gets $100 million. Like, you don't think like 30 guys are going to show up to that? Like, or more than that? I mean, I don't know. Like, that's pretty tempting to me. We'll see what happens, but I can definitely see a scenario like that playing out. But for now, the only constant in golf is going to be the four major championships, and we'll see what the chips fall with this other stuff. I mean, I don't know how they're going to. The tour released their fall schedule. I don't know if that's still happening right after the FedEx Cup, or if they're going to redesign it. We have no idea. So it's just all going to be a waiting game at this point to see what happens, how this all shakes out.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that. I mean, I appreciate your thoughts too, John. Yeah, it's now. I think the interesting thing is with the majors, as you mentioned, they're all almost all of them. I think the PGA is interesting because it's from the PGA of America, not exactly the PGA Tour, but I assume the PGA Tour is a function of that. So that's going to be an interesting decision for me in come May. But I don't want to be the boycott guy, but I definitely feel like since these are all different events by different organizations, certainly the Open coming up, like that's the R&A, so that's a whole different ball game altogether. So I think that's gonna be fine. I'm not gonna stop covering these events, but I just mean my personal investment in them emotionally is gonna be very, very different going forward as a result of this, and it just worries me that the rest of sports is gonna be affected the same way. Like you said, like this could absolutely happen to an NFL team. Money is money, and it's like at some point you have to just say, this. Is it worth it anymore? I don't know. I mean, listen, I gotta still suss this out for myself. So I'm going to turn to Andy, who I have often cited as the voice of reason. Andy, I'd love to get your thoughts on this as well. I would
No,
appreciate.
I wouldn't say I'm the voice of reason, not at all. But I will say, you know, Old Baby was completely wrong about the live. I mean, I know we could break it down. No one watched it. The ratings were atrocious. No one went to the event, but they were a fucking disruptor from day one. They moved the needle in quite a drastic direction a month ago. They are not good people, obviously. We say it as a joke, follow the money, follow the money. Why do we say it as a joke? Because people literally follow the money, whether it's networks, whether it's corporations, whether it's people leaving one job for another, whether it's Dustin Johnson basically saying on Netflix, they are paying me more money to do less of what I do well. It just happens. Like in Monahan, I agree with Monahan is a complete fraud, liar, thief, clown, all the adjectives. He definitely left. Now we said last year or whenever this all started, probably last year, this little corner, we knew Justin Thomas and Rory were basically tasked with being Monahan's puppets, and being staunch defenders of the tour. Tiger, obviously, the staunch defender of the tour. But a lot of their contemporaries did what they thought was best, and now we're gonna have this we have the fascinating thing about all this is that we have no idea what's gonna happen next year. Greg Norman's we're gonna have the regular schedule. And then other people Greg Norman, he might be detained, locked up, and beaten in Saudi Arabia next year. Some people are Greg Norman's gonna be the face of this new entity. Who knows? Who knows where Greg Norman's gonna be in 2024? Who knows where Nance? I don't know. It's really gonna be interesting. What John mentions, the schedule. No clue. No clue. Are the PGA guys going to be wearing shorts? Is there going to be atmospheric, ambiance, Pitbull, in between shots like there are in all the live events? I have no idea. No one has any idea. We're gonna get the information piecemeal as it comes. Now, personal feelings aside, morality issues aside, I am such a degenerate. I like watching golf. I like watching the best players compete against each other. So if we're going to see more Cam Smith, if we're going to see more Jocko Neiman, we're going to see more Koepka, going to see more, a focus. DJ's, he's always glazed look. But if we're going to see more, Abraham Answer, Matthew Wolff, I don't think we'll ever see again. But, some of these live guys they're going to be on TV more often, I would assume. Now, I'm all right with less team events, because I think that the whole team event thing was obviously a fucking gimmick. Bubba Watson being yeah, my son loves the Lakers. He loves the Yankees. So yeah, we're the Goat Ranchers are. It's a real cool concept for golf. We're gonna try to be a brand that's just as known as the Yankees. I don't think so, Bubba. But keep spewing that bullshit. We're all buying that with a fork and a spoon. But yeah, Dave, it's gonna be interesting how everything pans out from a schedule standpoint. I mean, even without live, just how the WGC events were disintegrating. The Dell match play was gone. They haven't. Yeah, they used to go to China, HBC, Shanghai. Like, they haven't done that in forever. So yeah, things were obviously changing. A lot of people were saying like Live like just expedited the PGA, like giving more money to players. But as Mike said, like it was really like this. I'm not smart enough to describe it, but not dog eat dog, not snake eating its own tail, but um, they like Liv did what Liv did, and the PGA reacted maybe rashly by having all these like higher elevated larger purses, and it's not sustainable, right? You can promise, oh, the prize pool we're gonna triple the prize pool, we're gonna have more event. Remember, next year they're supposed to have more events without cuts, right? Like, what happened to that plan? Like, what is going to happen to that plan? But that whole idea of having no cuts, more events with no cuts, was to ensure top fields committing to the weekend, so the sponsors that are paying boatloads of cash can be assured that they're going to get 4 days of, Jordan Spieth or whomever the top players are, right? But I'm sure they have like forensic accountants, financial analysts, like, uh, we're gonna like go belly up at this point sooner than later because the money's gonna dry out. So what do you do when you need more money? You need to seek out rich people with more liquid availability than you have, and who's more liquid than PIF at this point, right? I don't know. Maybe there are people. Again, I'm not smart enough. I don't watch. I watch Succession, but I'm not. I'm not the smart. I'm not the adult in the room. So, yeah, they are in bed with rich bad people, and the other hot take that I got was like, now PIF has control of like the PGA pension, right? Like, that's a lot of money in the pension. So what are they're gonna invest like the pension funds, right? Like, I don't know. So a lot of moving parts where a lot smarter people than me can maybe like connect the dots. I can't connect the dots. I'm just gonna try to process the information as it comes, and hopefully, in the next 2 years, like the golf that we watch on TV will be, at the end of the day, just normal golf. Um, who knows? Are we going to have majors in like the Middle East? Maybe. Like, are we going to have like a major in February somewhere? Parts unknown. Who knows? We could. Like, last year, did you all think that Monahan would be having breaking bread with the bad guys? Absolutely not. But here we are.
Here we are indeed, Andy. I mean, again, I don't have anything to add to this. Like, it's a lot. I'm gonna admit it's a lot right now. Just thinking about being we've been a podcast for a long time, and now we're a podcast, and we're trying to make sense of this. Y'all done admirably in that area. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, as far as the golf aspect of it, I'm sure it probably will be fine. I mean, as you mentioned, some of the folks will be coming back, so there is that. So thank you so much.
I agree with John. One last thing of what John said, but the NFL, like,
yeah,
I think it's a matter of when, not if.
Absolutely. That's such a good point, John. Like, there's no question in my mind there will be some version of that coming. You're absolutely right. Yeah. Okay. Let's give it to...
They're talking about, like, down the road, they're going to have like a European division in the NFL. Like, you'll have London, and you'll have Germany, whatever else market they're trying to get into, and we're first to jump on that. So just a matter.
Yeah, I mean, this all would be reasonable, would be like tolerable if we did know that the Saudi Arabias are out or well known, not even like a cloud of secrecy over this, like for being absolutely terrible humanitarian people, terrible. It's just no getting around that, none. And so I have a hugely difficult issue with that. So with that said, I think we can wrap the book on that for now. Obviously, it is what it is. Well, as you mentioned, Andy, like we don't know the entirety of this yet. And Mike mentioned that too. So we will continue to cover golf as much as we can in the next few months and see what happens. So I'll give it to you for final thoughts. Mike, I'll go to you first.
We've all been doing this for a long time now, and there's just this different feeling that pervades over the show tonight. Look, little things have changed along the way. Who has been at the top of the game has changed, obviously. When we started off, Tiger Woods was still relatively young, and a lot of the debate was, can they stop acting like he's prime Tiger Woods every time he shoots a good round? Now he's basically done as a competitive player. We saw Rory McIlroy, come along and look like he might be the next great player, and then now it's been 9 years of disappointment with the last and probably not as hurtful as the Open Championship, but one of the more hurtful disappointments along the way that we're covering here tonight. But things like that happen with golf. Players comes in all sports, really. Players come and go. Style of play changes. There's advancements in technology. It's not a unique thing to golf. But we're sitting here on the precipice of something that none of us here have ever experienced. Some of our parents may have a little bit with the NFL, the AFL NFL merger being a thing, but ultimately all that did was like doubled the size of a existing league when you really think about it, and gave us the Super Bowl. But we're looking at something where the premier level of golf, which has always been primarily based in the United States with a couple events here and there outside, it seems like that's all about to change. That what will be going on here week in, week out will almost be secondary, and there will be this global tour of golf, which will have most of its stops here, but it will still have a lot of international flavor. And it's something that all of us here are big sports fans. All of us here have a certain inclination to make some wagers when we so think we're smarter than Las Vegas. But this is all uncharted territory for us, and it's when you get into situations like that, it's hard to know how to react. So it's a strange feeling. It's one that I'm feeling now. I don't know. In the end, will it still be golf? Probably for the most part, but we're in this era where everyone seems to think that they can outsmart themselves and they can add a wrinkle or two to something, and they just end up screwing things up. I just listen. You want to make a whole bunch of teams and not really change up the format of the actual golf tournament? You know what? Go for it. Who cares? But I hope we don't see a main tour of 54 hole events with, that's just, it wouldn't be the same, but maybe they'll say, hey, we make more money that way. I don't know. I hope not. So the whole thing with Saudi Arabia, I didn't even want to get into that tonight, because you know what? The whole world has allowed Saudi Arabia to invest in their businesses and become intertwined with them that I almost think the ball has rolled so far on that what's the point unless there's a massive shift diplomatically and among the global stage, which is really that's a subject not for what we're trying to do here. So who knows? But yeah, we're at the precipice of a major shakeup, something like we've never seen. And yeah, I do share though the sentiment that we've kind of heard, which is, you know what, hopefully when all the dust settles, we still have golf week in, week out that we can tune into, regardless of who necessarily sponsors it or what it's called.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, and I really love that point. I mean, I think it's important you mentioned that because, like, you're right. Like, I mean, to what extent or degree could any of us truly could hold our moral ground in anything like that? We don't know who's investing in any company or organization or even universities or corporate or whatever or leagues. It's a good point. Like, there's degrees of this everywhere. College football is no different. Pro sports is no different. Just not to this extreme degree where you literally have a government funding something. But still, you're right. Like, you're absolutely right. I mean, we have dealt with this with China. I'm not, again, like you said, if I get any deeper into this, we will be extending beyond the boundary of our show. So I'm not going to do that. But you're absolutely right, right? I guess it's a really good point, and I appreciate you making that point. And so we'll see. I guess we'll see. But I do feel weird right now about this, and we'll see how things go with golf. But as long as it stays, true, more or less true to what it's been, then maybe it will be okay. It's just weird. But I think everybody else feels that way. So, John, let's get your thoughts. Final thoughts.
Yeah, definitely uncharted territory what we're heading into, and like we've said, like all we can do is wait for more information to come out. So hopefully by the time we meet again, it'll be late July. Maybe we'll have some kind of idea about what next year is going to look like. So we can kind of reconvene and assess where we are at that point. But yeah, we'll see how the British Open goes. Hopefully that'll be a tremendous event like always, and we'll see where we are with this whole situation.
I love it, John. Yeah, I mean, you're right, and I'm so glad that you've all been so, like, what's the word? You've been, like, not too crazy. I don't know what the word is, but, like, I appreciate your I don't even know what the word is, but just whatever the word is, like, it's I appreciate you being, like, I don't know, calm about it. Because, like, me, I don't often do that, so it's nice to have your perspective to help me through things like this. Like, it's really great. So, Andy, let's get your thoughts and final thoughts, and then we'll wrap things up for the night.
Yeah, it was, a lot of golf, big weekend, Connecticut. To kind of piggyback what the other guys have said about, like, what the golf will look like in a few years' time. It's like, just to use a very watered down analogy or whatever, it's like when like one restaurant gets bought out by like a big management company, or gets bought out by like a big chain, or like a company A gets bought out by a conglomerate, and they're always like, we're gonna stay the same, like the menu's not gonna change, like. Or when airlines merge, like, we're still going to be the same. We're going to combine the best of both entities into one entity. But obviously things change. So, someone be like, Andy doesn't even know how to soak. But anyway, the golf, yeah, when Mike mentioned, like, if they go to 54 holes, that would kind of be rinky dink. But, PGA is a good product. It doesn't really need any tinkering. But as Mike said, everyone wants to be the smartest guy in the room. So, would it surprise you if they have like, oh, all right, on this like particular day, we're gonna have like a 3-club challenge? Like, I don't know. Like, nothing would surprise me at this point. So, we shall just see. But all we can do is just watch what's presented to us, and we got we got a Ryder Cup, we got a FedEx Champion, we got British Open. There's some inventory up the pipeline, and we know John knows this. Like, college football is coming, and it's coming fast. But still enjoy your summer.
Yep. No, absolutely. It'll just like we say during the college football season, these months go fast. Like, we're gonna be talking about summer today, but then like you blink your eyes and it's gonna be like college preview time, and then you blink again, and we're gonna be talking about the regular season. So it's gonna be some fun times coming up. Yeah. Thanks, Andy. That's it for me. I now I'm gonna stay on Twitch for a little bit, but fellas, like, I really appreciate you being on tonight. Thank you again. It's really great to have your expertise, and honestly, it means so much that you be able to like walk us all through this, because there's a lot to unpack, and I'm sure, as you mentioned, there are going to be more layers revealed later. So have a great rest of your week. Thank you so much, and we'll keep doing the thing. We will come back for the open recap about a month from now, and we'll do. I mean, if you're up for it, John, we can do the preview with Ron, the college preview. Yeah, the college preview later. We'll work that out, but.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely, Dave. Come on, we gotta starting my readings and doing, listen to podcasts. Like I'm gonna be ready. Like we gotta do like we did last year, the group of 5 on one night, and then the Power 5 on another night. It's gonna be a 2-night series, so I can't wait.
And Twitch is a great platform for these kind of streams. I mean, we can go as long as we need to go. This is gonna be great. Yeah, I'm into it, John. All right, so take care for now. We'll see you soon. Bye, everyone. Yeah, I love that. I love that lead up, John. That's really great. Now you got me pumped up. I'm really ready.
All right, see you guys.
See you, everybody.
Happy Lake House season, guys. Take care.
Thank you, Mike.
See y'all later. Nice talking.
Yeah,
Great chat.
Same, Danny. Thank you. Take care. Well, that's our panel, everybody. Thank you again for tuning in. Those of you on our podcast, my name is Dave Medina. You can find me on all the platforms as Davey is eating a sandwich, except for Twitter. Twitter's got its own thing, but I'm on TikTok. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Instagram, and actually, technically speaking, I'm on Facebook too. So. It's been great to hang with you. Those of you on the podcast, we will see you next time. But everybody here on Twitch, I'm gonna take a break and we'll come back. And Base Carnet's good to see you. Where's the sandwich? I don't see one. I don't have one yet. I was gonna roast golf. It's not a terrible call to do. No, Twitter would be the sandwich show. So there is a Twitter, but it's just different handle, because the story behind that is that the Twitter only has like a 15 character limit, so I can't use my full handle on there. So that's why I had to change it. It's kind of weak. I want that. I want Davey's Eating Sandwich on all the platforms. And yeah, I know it. Oh, Necro, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Seem like nice. Oh, they absolutely are. They're really, really good people. John, Andy, and Mike have been really good friends. I've met them all in person too, at different points of my life, and it's really great to hang out with them when I can. But don't go anywhere yet. We'll be right back. We're gonna hang out a little bit. I'll turn all the point redeems back on, and we'll keep going, and we'll talk about whatever. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Thanks so much for hanging out with us tonight.